The following presentation was recorded live in Las Vegas, Nevada for the 27th Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape 12, Voice 2.
We're back on. How many of you are new in this session? About half. In the first session, I went through just a general overview of how your voice works. And there was... I did not talk about the care of your singing voice. How many of you here would like to spend a few minutes talking about how to tell when your voice is, when you shouldn't sing, when you should sing, and things like that? Okay, let's do it. We'll start off with that stuff as a kind of a culmination of our chat from the last session. There are some things that you can do to maintain your vocal health. One of them is that you need to stay lubricated. You need to drink lots of liquids. They should be non-alcoholic liquids, and they probably ought to be non-carbonated liquids in order to be most useful to you. Fruit juices and water are the best choices that you got, water being the very best of all. You can always tell when you're not hydrated enough because your urine will be yellow. And there's this sort of axiom that all singers know, and that is that you pee pale. And if you've got enough liquid in your body and you're not taking a lot of medication, you'll be able to tell when things are right because the urine that comes out will be sort of clear. And that's as good a way as any that you can tell when you've got enough liquid in your body. If you're dehydrated, drinking 2 bottles of water before you go to the dance is only going to have to make you go to the bathroom at the dance. It won't solve the problem of your hydration. It's not a short-term thing. It's an ongoing health maintenance thing that you should do. Not only will your voice thank you, but your kidneys will thank you. So be sure to drink enough water all through your life. You should get a sufficient amount of rest. That means that you shouldn't be using your voice all of the time. People who use their voices a lot during the day, school teachers, lecturers, those folks often find themselves vocally too tired by the end of the day to go out and sing, call a dance. If you have a dance to call, you need to be a little cautious about how you use your voice through the day. Don't abuse it. One of the most common abuses is to get in the automobile, be all excited, chatting with your wife, and running the air conditioner and the radio on low, and you're in the car for 2.5 hours, and you can't figure out why you're vocally tired when you arrive at the end of your trip and your voice isn't fresh. But the noise level inside most automobiles is about the same noise level as there is in an airport. And to talk over that volume, it can be very exhausting in the voice. In order to get your voice to project through it, you often bite into the heavy part of your voice and push your voice, and that can be also very tiring. So I would be very cautious about chatting it up too much before you go to the dance. Hold your energies, let your voice stay rested and relaxed before you go to a dance. Some folks have some difficulties with rough throat. They wake up in the morning, don't have very good breath, like buffaloes have been camped there overnight on your tongue. And they also have a problem with roughness, rawness, or raspiness in the early morning part of the day. Lots of phlegm that builds up and have to be blown off and talked through and gargled through and throat clearing and that kind of stuff. Those individuals are the people who ought not to go to the post-dance party and eat a lot and then go home and sleep with a full stomach, because there is an increasing number, I don't know if it's increasing or whether they're just diagnosing it better, but there is a disorder called gastric reflux disorder, and one of its characteristics is that you fill your stomach full of food, stomach acids get churning, you lie down. As you lie down, the sphincter muscle at the top of your stomach relaxes, allowing gastric juices up the esophagus, and it enters up into the area of the vocal folds, in the back of the vocal folds, and can actually burn them and cause swelling and a lot of phlegm in the back of the throat. Those individuals ought not to be the ones that eat a big meal before they go to call a dance, and definitely ought not to eat a big meal after they call a dance, and then go home and go to bed and sleep with a full stomach. Those are some of the kind of characteristics that you should watch out for to maintain your voice. When you have a tendency, everybody does from time to time, to get some sort of respiratory infection, ranging anywhere from a mild flu to a full-blown cold to full-blown laryngitis. You can get a cold in your nose, you can get a cold in your chest, and you can get a cold in your throat. Often you can get them all three places at once. But you should know that, generally speaking, a cold in your nose is not going to keep you from singing, because it doesn't actually affect your vocal folds. Instead, it doesn't really hurt at all. It makes you sound like you're more resonant than you really are. The truth is, you're not really using your stuffy nose to make yourself more resonant, but in the early stages of a cold, there will be a very slight swelling in the vocal folds. Just so ever so slight that it doesn't keep you from singing, but just enough to put a little more substance into those vibrating membranes, and that makes your voice sound like it's richer and fuller. Swelling is the primary thing that you want to watch out for. And the things that will cause swelling in your vocal folds are abuse of your voice, shouting, hollering, basketball games, football games, arguments with your wives, beating your children, that sort of thing, that where you use your voice in a violent way. That will lead to a swelling in your vocal folds that eventually will be very difficult to overcome. Clearing your throat on a regular basis is another way to develop some difficulties, some swelling, edema in your vocal folds. Some women on a regular basis have difficulty with water retention, and that water retention can also manifest itself with a slight water retention in the mucosal membranes of the vocal folds, so that the folds feel thicker and the high notes are harder to get. And the only way that you can tell that the origin of that trouble is just to keep track of it. When that characteristic occurs, you just look at it in terms of your regular monthly cycle and see if there's anything that's related to that. And then if there is, your doctor can help you figure out by taking a diuretic of some sort to reduce the amount of water retention that might be associated with that. Let's see. You guys now jump in with conditions, situations that may be troublesome to you. Question.
Sometimes when I'm singing a song I particularly like, that I use my voice in a way I want to really sound great, I'll get, I don't know if it's a psychological condition or not, but I seem to get an excess flow of saliva, and it just kind of interferes with my singing.
Does anyone else have that characteristic, that when you're singing along occasionally you get too much saliva in your mouth? That does happen to some individuals. And I don't have a real solution to that problem, except that you acknowledge it and then you just spit it out. While you're singing along, just don't hold it back in your mouth, but let yourself sort of aspirate it. Get it out. Yeah, question.
Should you warm your voice up, like when you're driving in a car to a dance?
Yes, absolutely you should. Your voice is like any other part of your body, that if you were an athlete, you would stretch out your hamstrings and your Achilles tendons before you would run. Any athlete that's going to be vigorously participating will take time to stretch and limber the body up. We call that warming up, but it doesn't really change our body temperature. It's 98.6 after we've finished, and it was 98.6 before we started. But it does limber the muscles up, and there are muscles in your throat that need to be limbered up. Particularly are the muscles that need to be limbered up, the muscles of pitch inflection that raise the pitch, because mostly men talk in a relative monotone. We don't inflect our voices very far from the bass pitch. And as a result of that, we don't exercise the pitch inflection muscles. You notice that if I'm really going to talk, more interestingly, I would let my voice inflect up and downwards and not talk in a monotone. And it's that monotone that needs to be stretched out. The muscles of inflection need to be used more vigorously in order for them to be ready to work. And if they don't work well, then the next thing you know, you're taking that heavy voice and you're trying to push it high, and you weary yourself, and before you're done with your second tip, you're wondering if you're going to make it through the rest of the night. But that pitch inflection is one of the things that men need to work on. And that can be done in any number of ways, one of which is to just inflect your voice and let it go up and down and high and low, and let that stretch out. Another thing that needs to be done is you need to make sure that your breath is flowing, because in everyday usage we don't use as much breath as we ought to use when we're singing. And so if you go along trying to sing with the normal amount of breath that you use to talk with in a conversational way, you will be insufficient with your breath flow, and your voice will then have to tighten up to compensate for the lack of airflow. So that's another thing that needs to be done. All of the whole muscular frame of the body can be stretched out. Your torso needs to be limbered, because all of the muscles of the abdomen and the rib cage and the diaphragm all interplay. And if the torso is stiff, then those muscles aren't going to work right. The muscles in the throat are very, very closely associated. The muscles of the voice box are very closely associated with postural muscles. The muscles of posture that keep your neck long and your head back are very much associated with the way that your larynx suspends in your throat. There are some muscles that attach here at the mastoid process, right behind your ear, and they extend downward, and they're part of the suspensory system for the larynx. And if you stand with your head cocked like mine is, with your chin thrust forward and your neck bowed and the muscles in the back of your neck drawn short, it will cause your larynx to flop at an angle that will make it very difficult to extend your pitch upwards. You'll hit a place where you need to go into a new register, and you won't be able to access that register, partially because there's a crimpage in the larynx posture itself. So good erect posture is going to be significant in terms of your ability to access high pitches. Your rib cage, shoulders down and back, sternum high, will access your lungs, will open up the cavity of your lungs where you breathe into. And if you stand or sing in a collapsed posture, you will find that you're running out of breath sooner. So all of those systems need to be stretched out. You need to stretch out, you need to make your neck loose, make sure you're not carrying any pockets of tension, your shoulders are released and loose, your torso is wiggly and loose, so that there's no rigidity anyway along the way. That kind of warming up is appropriate in the car. One of the easy ways to warm up the pitch inflections of your body, of your voice, is to hum, particularly downward humming or whining. The other one that I used in the class before is a chewing exercise. And the reason that that's an effective exercise is because the muscles of your jaw and the muscles in your tongue, their primary function is to chew and swallow food. And if you return them to their natural state, they have a tendency to get out of the way of your singing. One of the real significant challenges for singers is that singers feel a weakness in their voice box, and other muscles try to get in and try to compensate, help. One of the main culprits is the base of the tongue that feels a weakness in the throat and therefore stiffens to try to create some sense of stability. Well, it may create that stability, but it also creates a blockage. The jaw is the same situation. As the jaw gets stiff, it allows some sense of stability, but it really is lousy for keeping your voice flexible. So that chewing exercise is a really excellent one to loosen up the jaw, loosen up the tongue, and to allow the light voice muscles to gain some strength. Other question?
What about just a stick of gum?
A stick of gum will help lubricate, and the chewing will help, but it doesn't relate itself particularly to the making of sound. And so you can chew and you can limber up there, and then you start to sing, those old habits of grabbing may reassert themselves. And so that chewing exercise can be really useful. Any other questions having to do with voice health or maintenance?
I personally don't do this myself, but I have heard calls.
I have a friend that has...
This good friend of mine, when he gets into a real enthusiastic mode with a peppy singing call, they get real raggedy now and again. Is that bad on the throat? Can it be done now and again, but not too much, or what?
That raspy quality, really pushing hard on the voice for effect, yeah, it can hurt. And if you don't do too much, it can be used for effect. And what's too much? Well, when it starts to hurt, you're doing it too much. And if it doesn't hurt, then why bother? really it's a self-monitoring thing, but that done to an excess, that kind of drive in the voice can really be very wearing on the voice. Okay, any other questions that have to do with voice health? If they don't come up now, we can tackle them later if necessary. In the sessions that we had in the first session today, I talked about breath flow, talked about basic ways of making the sound happen. I won't repeat those things today. We got started into voice quality, and that's what this session is supposed to be. This session is supposed to have to do with voice quality. And so I'd like to have you think in terms of your stereo system and tweeters and woofers. There are those sounds in our voices that engender high frequencies, like the tweeter on your stereo, that give penetration power and carrying power to the voice. And then there are other elements in the voice that give warmth and depth to the voice. And if one has only one of those things, then the voice often sounds incomplete and unfinished. If, for example, you get too much brightness into the voice, as if there's no bass in the sound at all and it's just treble, then that can be kind of irritating. And I've heard many women callers say that when they sing this way, it makes all the men in the square feel like their mother's mad at them, and they don't like to dance to that. Clean your room! Don't wash... You know, it engenders a kind of an emotional response that's way out of proportion to the shrillness of the voice, except that it's a context kind of thing. So that isn't... If you listen to me carefully, this and this is the same pitch. Can you tell that? It doesn't sound like the same pitch. This sounds like it's a higher pitch, and this sounds like it's a lower pitch, but it's not. That's a resonance issue. This has got the bottom to the voice, and this has only the top to the voice. And all of that is governed by this 7.5-inch tube from the lips to the top of the larynx. There's a tube that kind of takes a right angle turn right at the top of your throat. It's about 1.5 inches in diameter, and it expands outwards in the mouth a little bit, but basically it's a tube that's 1.5 inches in diameter, 1.25 inches, and it's about 7.5 inches long in the normal adult male. But it's not an inflexible tube. It's got a lot of moving parts in it, and depending on how those parts move around, you can make your voice more mellow or more shrill. The more you access the tube, the richer the quality will be, and the less you access it, the brighter the quality will be. The first thing that I'd like to ask you to do is something that we ended the session with last time, and that is, it's a little 5-point placement drill that was taught by a man in Southern California named James Kenny, who is a teacher of popular singers in the Los Angeles area. He wrote a book called Becoming a Singing Performer, or Becoming a Popular Performer. I've forgotten exactly the title now that I'm here. But this 5-point scale has its origin, the number 1, the brightest of all of the sounds, is approximately across the tip of the nose. You take your hands and make a megaphone that touches the tip of your nose and goes to the corners of your mouth, but does not tolerate any depth, any sounds that go back inside your mouth. And it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nobody ever really talks like this, except Inspector Clouseau. But it is the very most bright and penetrating sound that you can create. And you notice that I don't talk naturally. I have a bit of a strange inflection. And the reason that it's in a strange inflection is because some of the vowels, which would normally sit deeper inside of my mouth, can't sit there, and I have to modify them so it sounds like I have a speech impediment. Would you try that with me? You don't have to talk as much as I did. You just count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, but you noticed if you listened about the room that somebody said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason for that is that the O vowel is more comfortable in the mouth, in the back part of the mouth, and 4 is one of the really hard vowels to say. You notice that 3 is very easy to say because it's forward in the mouth anyway, right? So would you do that one more time? Only this time when you get to 4, keep it right in front of your tongue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you were to sing that way, it would sound like you were singing through a kazoo. It's very bright, very pinched in its quality, and it's really fun for as a parlor voice, you know, just to make a joke out of. But nobody ever sings with that on purpose. However, the second position is a place where you often hear people sing, and that position is right across the bridge of your nose, down through your smile lines, and it includes your eye teeth. And so now you're getting just a little bit of space on the inside of your mouth, not just in front of your teeth. Okay? And it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, would you try that with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You might want to use your hands just to remind you. Some of you are, most of you are not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll notice that again, the E vowel is easy in that position, and the O vowel in 4 is a little awkward, and you have to kind of tinker with it to get it to stay as far forward as it should in that inflection. Does that feel normal to anybody in this room? Is that your normal speaking position for anyone? Well, a small minority of people find that the normal speaking position. And for almost all rock and rollers, for many popular singers, for almost all Broadway singers, that's the belting position. It's very brash and very forward, so if you want to sound like Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey when you're singing, that's the position that you want. Barbara Streisand sings in that position. There is a goodly number of male Broadway singers who use that inflection in their singing. The third position is marked by the edges of the eyes, the eye sockets, and it extends down across the cheekbone and now encompasses about half of the depth of the mouth through the highest arch of the hard palate. Would you count to 5 in that position? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that feel like a normal inflection position for anybody in this room? Some of you are nodding your head yes. That's beginning to sound more normal. The 4 position is the most normal American position. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but American English is actually a very guttural language. It's very throaty compared to most other languages in the world. And we don't recognize it because it's our language and we're accustomed to it. But put your hands now right on the hinge socket. And so now it takes in all of your mouth down through your jawbone, clear to the back of your throat, or back of your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that the normal speaking position for most everybody? Yeah, for most of you that's the normal place. Number 3 is an occasional alternative. Rarely do you get somebody in the 2 position, but 4 is the normal place for most Americans to sing. 5 is like number 1. It's a caricature, but it's there for an effective purpose. That's back behind your ears, and it includes the back of the throat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the Gomer Pyle voice that doesn't have what's the fellow Forrest Gump. You know, it often is associated with lack of intelligence. I don't know why, but it's a caricature. Now, did anybody have you been able to figure out how it is that you do that? How you're able to move those colors around? Now listen to me do them in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those the same pitches? Yeah, they are. But you notice that as I went into the higher numbers, it sounded like I was singing lower. It was deeper, that's all. And that's an important distinction to make, and you can make it in your own singing as well. So how do you do it? I'm sorry?
Lower your tongue.
Well, your tongue's very much involved in it, and it has very much to do with the forwardness and backwardness of your tongue. Do the 1 for me. Count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the most distinctive sensation you get is that your tongue is jammed way up at the front of your mouth and leaves no space behind. The sound isn't allowed to go in behind. Now go to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You notice where your tongue is. It's drawn quite far back in your throat. So your tongue is a really significant part of that whole package. I'd like to have you stand up. We're going to sing Home on the Range. And I'm going to call inflections for you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you might want to remind yourself of those positions. And my desire is for you to realize that you have some control over those elements in your voice. Okay, let's start in a 2 position. That's across the bridge of your nose. Here's our pitch. Go. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo... 3. Where the deer and the antelope play. 4. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word. 5. And the skies are hot, cloudy all day. 1. And human dreams. 2. Where the deer and the antelope play. 3. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word. 4. And the skies are not cloudy all day. Now sit down for a second. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Were you all successful in identifying those 5 places? Anybody not able to do that? You're shaking your head. What was? Come on forward just a second here. This is Steve Hayes. Okay, Steve, you said you had some trouble doing that. Which of those 5 places was hard for you?
Between 2 and 3.
Distinguishing the differences between them, was that the challenge?
Yeah, it was hard, one, to get to it, and once I was there, actually keeping it in that position, like it wanted to
The two was uncomfortable for you. How about 1?
Just funny.
Yeah. Just peculiar. Okay, so now that you're here, let's try that, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, so put yourself in a 2. No, Steve was one of these that didn't use his hands, so he was a little bit challenged.
Yeah.
Ready?
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam,
Now to 3.
where the deer and the antelope play,
1.
where seldom is heard a discouraging word,
4.
and the skies are not cloudy all day.
Thank you. Good. So initially, the use of the hands is only as a monitor for yourselves. And if you can do that, you can find yourselves having a wide variety of inflections in your voice. Same pitches, mind you, just a different resonance mixture. And you know, there's almost room for all 5 of those sounds, depending on which song you're singing. Wouldn't you agree? The majority of the sounds are going to be contained between 2, 3, and 4. But occasionally, for the fun of it, throwing a 5 in there is not so bad. It'll at least keep your dancers awake, alert. What was that sound that just came out of his mouth? But it's not hard to do. I had to teach myself how to do that. I read the book and I experimented and thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting thing. And so for a period of time, I had to use my hands to remind myself of the positions to be in. But soon after, and when I say soon, I mean within weeks of starting the process, I had gotten to where I could sense in my own body the vibration patterns that are associated with those 5 positions. So now, for me, it's easy to move back and forth between those places, pretty much at will. And you can too. And obviously, the more excited the dance is that you're calling, the more vigorous you wish it to be, the closer it's going to be to a 2. And the more mellow you want it to be, the closer it's going to be to a 4. And you can control that. Okay, there are some other things that will influence your resonance patterns as well. Would you all stand up and we'll go to the next exercise. I want you to swallow, but now I want you to swallow and hold the swallow. And you'll notice that when you swallow, you can relax now, when you swallow, the muscles in your throat, they raise the larynx up high, the tongue contracts, the back of the throat squeezes downward as a means of your tongue draws back to take the food that's in your mouth, put it back to the top of the throat. Then there are a series of sphincter muscles that contract starting at the top of the throat and gradually moving down the throat. and they send the food down the esophagus, and the larynx has been raised up high so that the food can get past it and get down your throat. Well, that swallowing position is contrary to the position that you should sing in. So in order to help you find the singing position, I'm going to take you to the opposite extreme. So would you swallow again? Hold that tight, really tight in the back of your throat. Now let go of it. Let it relax into its normal position. You can feel it just sort of release and open up, and it is as if right here at the top of your larynx, at the base of your tongue, it's like an aperture, an opening into the larynx. And indeed, that is what happens. There is an opening to the larynx that's right in that area where my fingers are, just right at the base of my jawbone and above the voice box. You can feel the voice box in your throat, and just right above there, you wish to not have any artificial constrictions. So swallow one more time. Make your throat really small. That'll inevitably raise your larynx high. Now in that position, sing Home on the Range. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Does that sound familiar to you at all? What would you say is the overriding characteristic of that quality? Sorry? Tight. Yes, that's a possible solution. Yes. Are there any other sounds? Strange? Strained. Yeah, it was strange too. Yeah, but strained. You were saying nasal. Yes. Anybody say twangy? Anybody find the twang in that? Now listen to me sing that. I'm going to sing with that small throat space. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play. That's not particularly strained. I don't feel the strain in my throat, but it's very bright. Wouldn't you say? Would you not say that it's kind of twangy? Something like that. Or like Hank Williams, or any other number of the traditional American Western singers, square dancers, square dance callers. Yeah, that's a standard quality that goes along with square dance calling, or with all kind of twangy Western singing. It's not painful, it's not hurtful to the throat at all, but it's a color choice. And it's done by having a slightly raised position in the larynx, as if you were on your way to swallowing, and then having the back of the throat squeezed a little bit small, so the opening right at the top of the throat, where the tongue is all blocked up. And so, when you block it all up, you lose all of the resonance that would extend down into the lower part of the body. Now that can be really, really significant to lady callers. This issue can be really significant. This is where the shrill edge can often come from in the lady caller voice. Now go back and swallow, get that tight feeling. Now let that go, relax it entirely. Now sing. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Could you hear what happened in the whole group sound in the room? Anybody want to comment about that? What did you hear? More richer, more resonant, more pleasant. It was fuller, deeper. What? Less twang. Real. Okay. Now it's hard for you to eat, but this is something that you can experiment with yourselves. As a matter of fact, you are going to experiment with it, because we're going to sing it again, and I'm going to call the difference between small. What word should I use? Tight and relaxed. But you know the spot that I'm trying to get you to loosen up. It's that swallow again. Get it? Now release it. So you back and forth. You're going to start with the tight. Go. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play loose, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Tight. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play. Released. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word. Tight. And the skies are not cloudy all day. Okay, have a seat. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Was there anybody that was not able to go back and forth between those two extremes? I don't think it's pretty easy to tell. Once you get doing it, there's this and there's that, and this is what this sounds like and what it feels like, and this is what that sounds like and what that feels like. And you know what? Now you're free to choose. And there may be an occasion where you'll want it one way and you'll want it another way. I can think of lots of occasions when that more mellow quality would be very, very valuable. But I can also think of some occasions when that twangy quality would be just exactly what you want. And so part of it is that you make the choice depending on what you are trying to say with your voice. Right? Okay, but now you've got some tools that you can use to help with that. Are there any questions about that? Now just listen. Yeah, here's a question at the back.
I had a feeling that wasn't mentioned anyway, and that is tight throat. I felt like the sound was coming from in my head, in my mouth. And when I relaxed, I felt it was coming from my head.
I'm glad you said that. The gentleman said that he felt that when he was singing tight, the sound seemed to emanate from his mouth only and his head. It would seem to cut off from the rest of his body. And that when he relaxed his throat, the sound seemed to vibrate lower into his chest. And he began to get a whole body kind of resonance instead of just a partial body resonance. And that's, I'll call you back to thinking about tweeters and woofers. You know what happens to a stereo when you turn the tweeter up and turn the, you boost the gain on the tweeter and you reduce the energy of the woofer. It gets just this kind of a sound. You're riding it along in the car and you can't hear the news radio station, so you turn it all the way up to treble. And this is what you get, because it's the upper frequencies that carry and penetrate. It's the lower frequencies that give warmth and depth to the sound. If you're at home and there's no other extraneous noise going on, and you want mellow music, you want the full music, then you boost the bass on it, and you get that deep, rich, resonant quality that's so satisfying to hear. Now just listen. You've experienced it in your own bodies. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are all not cloudy all day. I'm busy with my throat. But you can hear the difference in the quality. And I didn't change the pitches. It's the same song. It's just the tuning of the resonances. Isn't that interesting? How much control you have over that same thing. And that I just talked to you about can be done with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. So that you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. It's a little harder to do. The 2 and the 3 and the 4 are much easier with this released throat. But the 2 and the 1 have a tendency to raise the larynx up and shorten the resonance tube so that you get higher frequencies. And if you want higher frequencies, and you do sometimes, that's how you do it. If you want more mellow, and you do want that sometimes, you now have some tools. Did you have a question you wanted to raise? All right. Okay, is there anybody that has trouble with not enough twang in their voice? No? Okay, so I won't even bother to go that direction. So, yeah.
Callers class, and a few women in the class. 2 of them are extremely twangy. One of them's even been calling for several years. Any other hints as far as getting her to become more mellow?
Yeah, a couple of drinks. No, I don't mean that. There are some other ways that you can induce this. You can ask a person to get that feeling just before you yawn. You know what it feels like? Just before you go into that deep yawn, there's a kind of a suspended moment. And that is the open-throated feeling as well. And since it's an image, some people can hold on to that better than the actual sensation of open throat. When they get thinking about their open throat, then their throat gets stiff and locked and unnatural at that point. Another way to do this that is many hundred years old, taught in the Italian school of singing, is to smell a rose. And in the process of opening up the olfactory nerves and opening up, there's a release in all of the throat. That's another way to do it. You get that sense of smelling the rose, and then you sing in that same, and it becomes really mellow and melodious. Another way is to imagine, just pretend that you had a glass of water and you're getting ready to drink it. Now, if you're paying close attention to what your body does in the moment, just as you start to tip that glass up, you'll discover that right here at the base of the throat, where the throat needs to open up and relax, the tongue gets really relaxed and the soft palate raises up, so that the throat is ready for the liquid that's on its way down. And it's that letting go sensation that is part and parcel of this resonance that I'm talking about. That's another old adage from the old Italian school. They would say, while you're singing, drink the tone in. And the image was to have your throat in a position prepared to drink while you're in the process of singing. So sometimes imagery will help. This swallowing and feeling when it feels like really tight, and then finding the opposite is a kinesthetic way of feeling the differences, and those are all possibilities. Now, with the issue of resonance, that's how you play with that 7.5 inches of tube. The position you put your tongue in, the position that you release the base of the tongue, those all have to do with resonance. I'm going to also show you that some of the vowels are brighter than others. You probably already know this anyway. But will you hum and hum an E? Put your lips right together, but inside your mouth, say the letter E. See where your tongue is? It's kind of arched forward up toward your front teeth, right? Now hum a U. Notice that it's not bunched up toward your front teeth, but it's arched up back toward the roof of your mouth at the back. Now hum an ah. And you don't feel either a constriction at the back of the mouth or a pressing to the front of the mouth because the tongue is low. And the way that you shape vowels can also be a very naturalistic way to help people tune their resonances. If, for example, you need somebody to have more brilliancy in their voice, then the thing that you do is to induce E and A vowels. E, and if you're going to E, A, ya, 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 that's a different ah than if I were to go ah, E, ah. If I try to get the ah to grow out of the E position, that's another way to do it. In the case of these callers, the lady callers, the right vowel to begin with would be an oo or an o. And you go, would you just try this for me, will you? We're going to start with the E. First say the word please. Your tongue stiff at the back of your mouth. Now say pizza. Pizza. Your tongue rolls forward and the back of your throat tonight is mellow. You get some of that rumbly quality of the resonant voice. Now go ee-oo-ee-oo-ee-oo-ee. And now all of a sudden that oo, which sometimes has a tendency to turn hollow, has some energy in it that it borrowed from the E vowel. And the E vowel, which sometimes can be shrill, would take some warmth from the U, and they sort of intermingle together. Do you have any trouble hearing the difference between those vowels in my voice? E-oo, 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 e-oo. You can still tell them apart, can't you? But now listen to the difference. E-oo, 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 e-oo. Here the quality changes drastically as I allow the oo to turn hollow. E-oo. Now what I'm doing is trying to get the oo to match the brilliancy of the E. If I reverse that, ooh, ee-oo, 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 ee, the E is a little bit more mellow. So if you're trying to get these ladies to get more mellowness in their voice, you might have them sing as if they were singing through an O vowel all the time. Every vowel that they say in the back of their throat, they should feel like they're saying an O. And then O has a tendency to get a lot of space in the back. O-E, which is different than E-U. You hear the difference in the resonance patterns? By matching it, O-E-A-O, there is a big spaciousness that helps induce that relaxation. Part of the resonance of the voice is actually done in the vocal folds themselves. For example, if you were to say this
This ends the front side of your cassette.
because it also carries an edge on it. It carries an edge on it. This has a tight edge, like I'm irritated, and this is a brightness that doesn't have the same tight edge on it, but it's resonant. You know, it's a resonant choice, not a vocal fold choice. By the same token, if I go this way and I make a nice mellow breathy sound, that's a choice that I make here at my vocal folds, and that breathiness creates a great warmth to it, but it doesn't have very much energy in it. And if I get more breath moving through that same sound, then all of a sudden it becomes fully efficient and resonant. So that's another part of the whole resonance tuning thing, is whether or not you're singing with a tight throat, tight vocal folds, or relaxed vocal folds, if you've got enough breath moving or don't have enough breath moving. I won't go back over that. That's all contained in the tapes on the other lecture from earlier. You can hear some exercises to help induce those differences in those levels. The other side, now that we're going to talk about, has to do with pitch inflection. How many of you are trying to figure out how to sing higher? A few. How many of you are trying to go lower? Fewer yet, but some. What are the rest of you doing here? The session is supposed to be voice quality. We talked about that. Now we're going to talk about how to get range extension. Most often the challenge is to extend the range upwards. And in the voice there are two basic registers. Or if you want to compare it to an automobile, there are two basic gears. There's a low gear that has depth and power and lots of torque, like the first gear in a car on a standard shift. And then there's a high gear, which has very little torque to it, very little bit of power, but it moves at high speeds easily and efficiently. And that's the same thing basically that happens in the human voice. You have the low voice that has lots of power to it, and the heavy voice pattern in the vocal, in the voice, it's all done in the voice box, has to do with how much thickness there is in the vocal folds. There's a certain set of muscles whose job it is to thicken the vocal folds so that there's more complexity to the wavelength and more intensity in the sound. And men use that a lot, and women are less inclined, although as the generations move along, women are becoming more and more inclined to use that heavier voice. Contrasting that is the light voice, the gentle voice, the tender voice that is easy to use, very lightly inflected, and you can go relatively high in the pitch range without any strain in the throat. It's quasi-falsetto, except it's not really falsetto, because this is falsetto. This is Mickey Mouse voice, you know, and it crackles, and every man knows what a falsetto is. But this I have to go back and find it again. This tender voice is not falsetto. You can tell that, can't you? Just by the quality of it? Or are they interchangeable? Can you hear the difference between them? This, and the nice thing about this is that it's going to get really loud in a sudden, and then it go back to a gentle sound. In other words, it has dynamic control. Whereas in the falsetto, if I try to go louder, it just doesn't work. It kind of it just can't withstand intensification. But the head voice in the male, female as well, can withstand intensification, and therefore it's a very useful tool. How do you find it? Anybody want to know? How do you get access to that sound? The way you do it most naturally, without getting all sophisticated with the piano and all kinds of things like that, and going and taking voice lessons and feeling all self-conscious, is to just chew. That chewing mechanism, releasing the jaw and the tongue, allows the throat an easy, more natural vibration pattern that takes pressure off of the throat. So here's the exercise. Yum, 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 yum. Do it. Yum, 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 yum. 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 Again on that pitch. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Now that's that pitch. That's higher than you ever sing when you're calling. And you're already there and nobody's bleeding at the mouth. Nobody's perspiring. Nobody's having any trouble with that pitch. You know why? Because you're in the right gear. You're in the right register. And it's no big mystery. It's easy to find. Now, allowing yourself to do that, it's kind of like allowing yourself to carry your wife's purse. I mean, there's a sociological challenge that's associated with that light voice because it fights against the American male tendency to be dominant, to be aggressive, and so you just have to get over it because the truth is that it's a stereotype that isn't real. It's just a stereotype that most men have bought into before we even knew that we were buying into it. When we were in the second and the third grade, it was the big tough kid on the playground. You know, it's that whole syndrome that keeps us out of that pitch range. And so what you men really have to face is the choice of whether or not you want high notes or whether you want a stereotypical image. And I vote for the high notes because the high notes say a way different thing about you in terms of your potency as a singer. And the old sort of rock-solid male stoic who can't sing the high notes, who needs it? You know, in a square dance calling environment. If you're going to stand toe-to-toe and fight somebody, then go ahead and use your chest voice. But if you're wanting to sing, then you're going to have to access all of your voice range, and that may mean some adjustment in how you perceive yourself and how your voice vibrates. To the chewing exercise one more time, and I'm going to ask you to identify something that's going to be really significant for you. Yum, 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 that range. Again. Now, this third time that you do it, investigate to see if you feel any vibrations in your chest. Go. Anybody feel vibrations in your chest? Some of you say yes. I would suspect that it's only on the bottom note that you feel it. But on the first notes in that scale, you don't. It's all vibrations in the head, upper part of the throat, and in the mask, the bones of the face. That is why the nickname for that light voice is head voice, because it vibrates most readily in your head. Now, use the heavy voice. Ya. Say, Shaw. Shaw. Okay, that's the macho male kind of sound. Yeah, tough. Rambo. And where does that vibrate, guys? In your chest. And that's the sociological slip switch. That if you're going to sound masculine, subconsciously, we're fearful of letting go of that chest vibration. But it isn't. It has nothing to do with our gender. It has to do with our vocal cords. It's about 2.5 feet away. And it hasn't had anything to do with it. You understand what I'm trying to say? There is a perceptual limitation that we place upon ourselves unnecessarily. And you noticed that as you got into that chewing exercise, it was easy to access that range. Now, I'm going to ask you to sing the Star-Spangled Banner with me. That song that is such a wide range that nobody can find it. That's where we're going. But in a minute, we'll get there. Now let's find the heavier mechanism. For ladies that you're trying to find this is going to be a significant thing for you, because that chest rumble that is associated with the chest voice that almost all men know from the time their voices changed, it may be foreign to you, and you have to induce it in some ways. One of the ways that you can do it is keeping that easy, relaxed throat and revving your engine. Everybody do that. You feel the easy rumble in your chest? Ladies, can you feel that? Do you sense that at all? Now take that sound and go, These are just the people, everybody stand up who are having trouble with their low range. Those who are trying to figure out how to do this more. Now go, oh. Good. You'll feel a lot of vibration in your chest. You'll feel some vibration, a little bit like a bullfrog right underneath your throat, a fullness and a richness. And that's an indication that your vocal cords are configured in that heavy mechanism, which creates a rich vibration. And for every frequency that travels up out of your throat, there's another frequency that travels back down your trachea and bounces off the bottom and sets up a vibration. That tracheal ring is what some singers call it. And that vibration in the chest is an indication that you're in your chest voice. And just like men are suspicious of going up into that head voice, many ladies suffer the stigmatization that they're going to sound butch if they allow it to slip down into their chest. But it isn't so. It's just a resonance pattern. So, one more time, would you do that? Rev your engine. Good, good. And so it's actually a permission you allow yourselves to feel those sensations. Now, those same sensations don't have to just naturally be associated with low pitches. The access to the heavy mechanism can be up in here, too. Do that with me. Good. That's excellent. Now, we're going to stand up now. And this last exercise before we sing the Star-Spangled Banner is an exercise that leaps an octave, or maybe easier said, from a low pitch to a high pitch. And when you're in the low pitch, you feel the buzz here in your chest. And when you go to the high pitch, you emphasize the buzz up in your head. I'll demonstrate it. You hear how it happens in me? You can feel the buzz. Good. Now here, there's our pitch, and up to there. Very good. There and there. See, all of you guys now are singing higher than there probably are not 10 records, calling records, that would take you to higher pitches than what you just sang right here. Probably not 10 in the whole bunch. Except we're talking about the falsetto yodels. In terms of real use of pitch, you've been as high as almost any of those records go. Okay? So, but as you go to the bottom of your voice, oh, say, you want to let it go there, because if you go, oh, say, if you try to stay in the light voice, you'll have no strength. And it's the strength in the low that is the purpose of that heavy mechanism. So the ability to go between this and this is almost like the use of my hands. If you think of my hands being like a garage door, that's the opener, and it either comes down and it bites into the chest, or it opens and takes the chest element away, then you get this kind of thing. Oh, say, I'm just going to demonstrate. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Hear how I mix and pull it in and take it back out again? And it gives me access to a wider range. You want to try that with me? Now, when we get to, o'er the ramparts we watched, we're so good, and the rocket's red glare. If I go, and the rocket's red glare, it's hard, it's pressurized. But the other one's easy. Okay? So, here we go. Oh, I get a pitch that's not too easy for you guys, that really makes have to sing upwards. Oh, right about there, go. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare. Now careful, guys, you get to do it one more time. This is the light voice. Don't drive this up. You've been to too many baseball games. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in, they prove, now bite in through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the hey, yeah, exactly. Have a seat. Now, go ahead and have a seat. Now, you can see that we're talking about range extension as taking the extremes, the light voice and the heavy voice. But there's an intermediate range there that has both of those characteristics in it. There's this, and then there's this that has both the power of the low and the inflection of the high. And it's that middle mixed voice together that is the best place for everybody to sing, because it gives you access to both the power that you need from the low and the sweetness and the gentility that goes with the high. And so you need to figure out what that feels like. Would you just say for me, hey? Hey. So it rumbles deep in your chest. Hey. 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 Now, how did you do that? You didn't raise your larynx as far as I can tell. There's still that easy resonance, but you've got a higher pitch inflection. Go there again. Hey. Hey. It's the male call voice. Hey, how are you? It's that kind of inflection. Now, that's your mixed voice, and as you notice it, it has both connection to your body, and it also has head inflection mixed in it. It's got both worlds mixed together. So, can you say, oh, say, can you see? And do that in your rumbly chest. Oh, say, can you see? Now, by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hail. Stop for a second. You can do one of two things, or actually three. What so proud? What did I just do? I drove my car in first gear up to 45 miles an hour. And it revved up, and it spread, and it strained a little bit, right? Instead of allowing it, like an automatic transmission, to shift. What so proud? What so proud? You hear there's no strain in that. There's also a clarity to it. And all it is I just allowed myself to go into that call voice. Say for me, proud. 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 What so proud? What so proudly we hail. Now you notice that all of a sudden that strain that goes in your throat is gone away, and in its place is a sense that I can only describe by using my hands. That instead of approaching proud this way, it's what's so proud, it just sort of lifts into a new place. And it's a comfortable place. It may just be a little bit unfamiliar. And it's that mixed voice that if you can get the power down in through there, you hear me? I'm in now my mixed voice, and here's my chest voice. And then I'm in my light voice. The light voice never has any power to it until you get to the very top of your range. Okay, so I'm talking about range as well, range increase. But can you see how this also has a bearing on voice quality? So if I'm singing, oh, say, can you see? Because I've got that in there, that's different than if I sing, oh, say, can you see? In my light voice. It not only, I can still get the low note with my light voice, but it changes the quality of my singing as well. And so the subjects are kind of very much intertwined together. The simplest way to say it is that as you go into the louder part of your voice, you need more participation of the heavy voice. And the more you go to the high part of your voice, the more you need the light voice participation. The more gentle and sweet and tender you want it to be, the more light voice there needs to be. And if you keep them isolated with high voice up here and low voice there, you'll get a big break in the middle of your voice. Most ladies know right what I'm talking about. You take the chest voice up and all of a sudden it goes, and you got this big shift over into a light wimpy voice. Men have that same characteristic, exactly the same pitch level in their voices, except they have a tendency to gut their way past it for 3 or 4 half steps, and then they flip to a falsetto or crash and burn. Or they don't sing those calls, right? They choose not to use those records. But I think not. I think that your answers are to experiment with this notion of heavy voice that vibrates in your chest and light voice that vibrates in your head. All of you saw how easy it was. Well, almost all of you. There was a drone somewhere in this room, there was a drone that was not wherever the rest of you were. And that was an octave lower than that. And I'd get over that. I'd just wean myself from that octave shift. Don't allow yourself the privilege of going there. And force yourself into that unfamiliar territory. Now stand up for a second. How are we doing time-wise? Well, I've run out of things to talk about. We got 20 minutes here. I'm going to have you sing She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain in a couple of different styles. I'm going to show you about not just reaching individual high notes, but maintaining high frequency, high pitch range. Okay, we're going to chew it. Yum 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 yum. Yum 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 yum. Yum 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 yum. Okay, now here's our new pitch. Yum 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 yum. Yum 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 yum. Yum 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 yum. Okay, to anybody? I see one brother there at the back who's sort of going, oh, from the very moment that I started on that pitch, he went, oh no, I can't do it. But the one before it, you did all right. Yeah. Anybody not successful in getting those pitches? Anybody hurting as the result of it? Oh, he dropped it. Oh, there's the culprit. Come on up here, Dick. Come on up here, Dick. I can't reach you because the microphone's not long enough, but... Now, do that same thing again, only this time do it a little bit more intensely. Yum, 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 yum. Now, time out. You see what just happened to your voices? Now do it in the lighter voice. Yum, 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 yum. Where's the vibration? It's here. Now add in some intensity. Yum, 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 yum. Now what do you get? Now you're getting a mixture. Oh, a mixed voice. Duh. Yeah, right. You can gain access to the high range as if you were in your light voice, but you can gain access to the strength as if you were in your low voice. Go ahead. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, 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 yum. Add the words. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. Okay, what did you get? Raise your hands. Tell me what your observations are. Nobody learned a dang thing. Wow, great. What are you getting out of this? Yeah, you got some strength and some range. Now, swallow. Make your throat really small. Now let it release. Now sing again. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. Now you see that not only are you getting the right range, but you're also getting that sort of rumbly, easy in your throat without having to squeeze and push and press. Now, for those of you that have discomfort at the low range, let's see, what can we sing that goes? Help me. Yeah, there we go. That's one I think everybody will know. Swing low, sweet chariot. Now time out. Swallow hard. Tighten up. Release. Let it rumble on your chest. Go. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Okay, let me hear from the people who have trouble with lower range. Were you successful? Okay, how about yourself? Yeah, I'm seeing some heads. There were some folk over here. Okay, come on up. One of the challenges, I can't remember. Mike. Yeah, this is Mike. One of the challenges that Mike has is that he has learned an approach to go into the bottom of his voice that blocks him off rather than opening him up. Would you sing that swing low, and I just let him hear what happens?
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Okay, now you hear what happened, how he lost the notes on the bottom? Would you say that Mike has more light voice in his nature or heavy voice in his nature? You bet. And the characteristic of the light voice is as that it goes lower and lower and lower in the range, it loses more and more and more power. So, can you get a chest rumble? Just say, shaw.
Shaw.
Now, you notice how he tries to press that in to say? Now, swallow hard. Now, release it. This time when you go shaw, don't allow that thing to constrict inward. And just see what happens.
Shaw.
Bingo. Okay, one more time.
Shaw.
Now do it like you're ticked.
Shaw.
Go up the...
What do you mean ticked? Mad?
Yeah. Except don't allow that thing to swallow it.
Shaw.
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 Rumble and release.
Shaw.
Yeah, okay, you're going. Now
Shaw.
say, swing low.
Swing low.
Sweet
Sweet,
chariot.
sweet chariot.
Bite it. Whoa, okay there. And that's another part of the subject that we haven't gotten around to. I got something to finish up the 20 minutes. And that has to do with what you do with your jaw. Here you go one more time.
Swing low, sweet chariot.
Now, there's another thing that Mike can do that may startle you all. Would you sing, nyam, 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 nyam?
Yam, 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 yam.
Okay, now you notice that he just barely can access that low note. That may be the honest-to-goodness bottom of Mike's voice range. But he'll gain greater strength at it if he will allow himself to familiarize himself with that chest rumble and not squeeze it or press it, but just, and that can be done with that nasty quality, or it can be done with the release and looking for that sternum vibration. Now let's come up about 4 half steps. So right about there. Go ahead.
Shaw.
Can you feel the chest vibrating?
Mm-hmm.
Go again.
Yeah.
Okay, now go lower and keep that chest vibrating.
Yeah.
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 Okay, that over a period of time should lead Mike to the point where whatever range he has on the bottom, he can gain access to without having to, it's the squeezing down that cuts you off. And that's exactly what it feels like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Feels like it just gets cut off. Okay, now the other thing that happened because Mike was there, go ahead and have a seat. The other thing that Mike did triggered something that I had in my notes that I'd forgotten to mention, and that is what you do with your mouth position can be really, really significant in terms of resonance. If you keep your mouth closed in small mouth position, then you will have a tendency to emphasize high frequencies more than low frequencies. And if you open your mouth more, you'll have a tendency to bring warmth into the tone. That's an easy thing to understand. We have in our language some vowels that are called closed vowels, and they're called that because our mouth is mostly closed. And then we have some vowels that are open vowels. Ah is an open vowel. Only most Americans don't make it an open vowel. They make it a closed vowel, and as a result, the sound gets muffled and we don't get the full resonant power. Now notice, swing low, sweet chariot. Now I'm trying to keep all my throat, I'm trying to keep my chest rumble, all of the stuff that we've talked about. Now here, go on. He swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Small mouth. Now watch. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Which one would you vote for? Yeah, all you got to do is open up your cotton picking mouths. Okay, so come on, try that yourselves. Stand up, please. The first thing you have to do is learn how to let go of your jaw. And for most Americans, that's really hard because, there's a number of reasons. One of them is that we're so cotton picking up tight. But the other side of it is that our language doesn't encourage really dropped, loose jaw. As you try to get your jaw open, is it hard? You try to get it into that open position? Let me tell you why. How many of you have temporal mandibular joint troubles, TMJ? You want a solution to that problem? Yeah, there's actually a solution to it, and I don't hear dentists talking about it very much. The muscles that clamp your jaw closed are up here on the side of your head. They're called the temporalis muscles. The temporalis muscles lay across the side of your skull, and the tendons of those muscles attach to a finger joint or a flange that belongs to the jawbone. I don't have a picture to show you, I don't think. No, I don't think I brought it. But your jawbone comes up part way here, the ramus of the jawbone, comes up and it splits into a one finger that goes to the back that joins into the temporal mandibular joint. And then there's another finger or another peninsula that slides forward and the muscle tendons of the temporalis muscle attach around that thing. And they make it like a fulcrum so that when you really want to clamp your jaw closed, those muscles grab and they really ratchet the jaw closed. And you can feel that. Bite down really hard and put your fingers on your temples. Feel that muscle grab a hold? Now, most of the time when people are trying to get their jaws to drop, they tug down on their jaw. But the only way the jaw will ever really drop is if the temporalis muscle lets go all the way. Anybody in this room have trouble with headaches on this part of your head? Really? I'm really surprised. Anybody have any trouble with grinding your teeth at night? Wake up with jaw soreness? Okay, well, as one of the things that happens with a fixed jaw like that, where the temporalis muscle won't let go, you got downward pressure by the digastric muscle trying to pull the jaw downward, but the hinge point where it should swing loose, won't swing loose. But there's still downward pressure. Now, where does that pressure transfer to? To the joint. And it won't release here. This is fixed, so it starts pulling the opposite direction, and pretty soon you've torn the ligaments in your temporal mandibular joint. Does that mean it's irreparable? No, it just means you let go of the cotton picking muscle. So, often voice teachers will ask you to massage your jaw while you're singing as a means of trying to induce the temporalis muscle from its clamped, locked position. And for many people, that's sufficient. Other times, voice teachers will talk about idiot jaw. Just kind of hanging like an idiot so that it hangs loose. But whatever method you use, I just think that whether your mouth is open or closed, that temporalis muscle, your jaw ought not to be in a clamped, locked position. Loose. Hang loose, okay? So, if you're thinking that your mouth is small, swing low, sweet chariot, there's not enough room to get one finger in between my teeth. Do it in such a way that you could get at least a finger or a thumb in there. Or if you can't sing with your fingers in your mouth, you can actually put your fingers alongside your cheeks, and by pushing inward, you can feel space between your molars, right? You want to sing with about a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of space between your molars. That's not a permanent position. It's just an experiment for right now to find out what happens to you when you open your mouth. Okay? So we're going to sing, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Now, some of the vowels feel real comfortable that way, don't they? But the E vowels don't feel so very comfortable, do they? They sound false. So, coming for to carry me. That's what we're used to. Me home. But by dropping my jaw, does that sound like an E to you? Carry me. Does that sound like an E? Yeah, it's an E, but it's not carry me. Pizza, carry me home. Right. Okay, so that's another issue that can help you bring the fullness of your voice in there so that it doesn't have to sound so small and pinched. Go ahead and have a seat now. Question.
Frequently yawning helps to release tension in the TMJ joint.
That is one of the reasons why we yawn. Don't go away. She's going to be a wonderful, wonderful guinea pig. You notice that she's wearing my most recent fashion statement here, which is a breath management tool to help you keep your ribs out. Of course, her ribs are squeezed to death right now. She's been here for an hour and a half with that thing on. She's actually trying to lose weight in her waist. But now I want you to say yawning again. That whole thing you said.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah.
The best way to release tension in the TMJ joint is to yawn frequently, opening the mouth really full and taking a lot of air in.
Some of you in this session have needed to yawn more. I've seen a lot of droopy eyes. But there's more here now. Let's see, Barbara. Okay, Barbara, I want you to... What voice does Barbara use most? Light or heavy? There's no heavy in there at all. Okay, can you rev your engine? Is there anybody here that wants to help Barbara rev her engine? Yeah, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hubba, hubba. Okay, so one might... No, don't make it like a cat snarl, but just... Go. You getting anything in your chest?
Not much.
No.
Very little.
Now raise the pitch. You notice that you... Now, squeeze, swallow, release, stay released while you make the sound. Oh, there it is for a second. Notice how she's yodeled down into that thing?
I'm looking for it.
Now open that into a sound.
Sounds
You know, no, it doesn't sound terrible. It's just an unfamiliar part of her voice. One more time, that low chesty range.
I'm going to play with it.
Yeah. You got it. If Barbara is able to figure out how to access that in conjunction with the other things that she has, she will have more command in her voice. Okay, thank you, Barbara, for being a guinea pig. Are there other questions to be asked, questions that you want to raise, or curiosities that you have? Yes?
You mentioned something about yodeling earlier. How do you do that?
Yodeling is just the opposite of what I've been showing you today. I've been showing you how to integrate your voice together to get the presence of the low and the presence of high simultaneously. And yodelers purposely split those two registers apart. And they will go da-da-dee, and they'll flip back and forth between those. They get really good at pinpointing pitch along the way. But their objective is to not unify the scale, but to keep the scale separate and have a high voice and a low voice and do that exactly on pitch. And it's a very healthy thing to do. It keeps the voice flexible and loose. Anybody that's tried to yodel knows how hard it is if you're at all stiff. But that's the process whereby a yodeler works. They go there and there and there and there and there, and they get to where they can actually tune the high note and almost sing in harmony with themselves. And it's very a wonderful talent that takes a long time to develop just to have the patience. Yes, question.
Is there a simple way or a simple practice?
Now, while you're talking to me, will you access your chest voice? Let it rumble.
Can I stand up?
And it doesn't have to be lower in pitch. It just has to be a choice to let it rumble in your chest.
Okay. Is there a simple way or a simple practice to put more vibrato in your voice?
Yes, vibrato. Anybody else curious about vibrato? Vibrato is a trained oscillation of pitch. I got it. Well, no, I didn't have it naturally. Everybody, it sort of develops. What happens is that vibrato, there are a lot of theories about it, and there are several ways in which vibrato can be made. But the theory that I subscribe to the most is that when muscles are under work, when they're working intensely, they flex, but they don't stay permanently flexed. The synapse sends a signal to flex, release, and And that sequence of flexing and releasing we normally don't see in the big motor muscles of our body. But in the muscles that control the fine flesh of the vocal folds, that oscillation between tensing, which tends to raise the pitch and increase the intensity, and releasing shows up as a undulation in pitch, a very slight undulation. And the more intensely a person sings, the more that vibrato will be present. And the lighter a person sings, the less there will be a vibrato. And so Mike has a tendency to be singing in his light voice most of the time. Therefore, he rarely gets enough intensity in his singing to trigger that undulation. Barbara, that's probably the same thing for you. Those of you that sing in the light voice probably will be inclined to have a straight tone. And the more you access that heavier voice, the more vigorously you engage your voice, the more the vibrato will creep into place. Like this. And some of you can try this. I'll show it to you and then you can try it. Here it is with vibrato. Now, did you hear that when the vibrato came in, there was greater intensity, greater richness, more engagement, and when I went to the straight tone, it was lighter and less loud, less intense. So that's part of the indication of that. Would you guys like to try that little drill? Stand up here. This will be the last thing we do.
Forever?
No, just for today. Okay, so I want you to start with a straight tone. Right there. Okay, now you answer for yourselves. What did you do to either make the tone go straight or allow the vibrato to happen? Anybody want to answer? Something. You said it. Say it, Gene.
Just seemed like I opened up more.
Something lets go in this part of the throat that we were talking about that's related to that swallowing and the releasing of the swallowing. Somewhere in there, there's an easy release that when it's relaxed there, the vibrato shows up, and when the tone goes straight, it gets a little stiffer right in that spot.
Relaxed, that's what I want.
Yeah, when it seems that the vibrato is accompanying a sense of relaxation, and that it takes some effort to make the tone straight for most folks, except for those who have a tendency to sing in their light voice, and they have to dig into their voice a little bit more for the vibrato to kick into place.
Practice the shouter voice.
Yeah, or one of my colleagues has his people practice the Halloween lady. Whoa! Ah! And that's another way to kind of trigger the vibrato into being. Well, thank you very much for being here. We've had a good chat. There's a question here. Yes. I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. In my group, I call the senior citizens, and I have a retired opera instructor in there. And
that person has no trouble with vibrato, does
she says her voice is gone, and I was asking her about rolling the R's. I have been envious of people who could roll their R's, and I said, among other reasons, that's why I could never be an opera singer. And how do you roll R's?
I know that. Oh. It requires a relaxation in the tongue, and if there's a stiffness in the tongue, particularly if the tongue has a tendency to want to draw back, to hold the tone stiff, remember we were talking about that stiff jaw, stiff tongue thing? If you can reverse that tendency so that the tongue can be liberal and free, you can more likely roll your tongue, roll an R, than the person who has a stiff tongue. Those who are tongue thrusters, who when they sleep they find, or when they swallow, their tongue juts forward against the front of their teeth, those people are ones that have a very difficult time having enough relaxation for the R to roll. But there are some things that you can do. You can say, "G'day, mate." You just tripped an R. G'day, 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 g'day. In other words, a tripped R is very much like a very soft D. Today. There's a rolled R. Today, 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 today. You get a double tap, and you just keep working that way until the tongue gets liberal enough so that it can shake itself loose into a trill. Now, tomorrow, it's going to be critique sessions. So I don't know how we're doing the sign-up. I think you show up with your records in hand, and we just go through the hour as much as we've got time for. So if you'd like to be back, or if you know others that want to do critiquing, let's get you in here, and we'll put you to work through the 2 sessions. One at 10:30 tomorrow morning and one at 1:30, I think, is the way the sessions run. You've been really good to be here. Thanks very much.